You know how sometimes you're catching up with someone, maybe online, and you suddenly realize, wait, they moved? When did that happen?
Hmm.
Or maybe, just maybe, you've had that fleeting thought yourself, that little daydream about packing up and living somewhere else.
Yeah, I think many people have.
That feeling, seeing familiar faces, heading overseas, and maybe that personal what if, well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
We're looking at the really significant story of New Zealanders emigrating, particularly since the year 2000.
Right. And for this deep dive, we've gathered quite a bit of information.
We have. We've looked at some detailed reports, got some fascinating data from Stats NZ that really lays out the numbers.
Helps paint the picture.
It does. And also insightful articles, from places like The Guardian and others that give us more of the human side of these trends.
So the mission today.
Pretty much to get past the headlines. We want to understand the core patterns of this emigration, figure out the key reasons behind it, and explore the real impact it's having, back here in New Zealand.
Okay, sounds good. So let's start by painting that picture then. Who's been leaving and where have they been heading since, say, 2000? What are the big trends that jump out?
Well, what's particularly striking, I think, is the sustained net loss of New Zealand citizens through emigration since 2000. It's quite consistent.
So even when we have periods where lots of people are moving to New Zealand.
Exactly. Even with strong immigration numbers sometimes, consistently, more New Zealand citizens have chosen to live elsewhere than have returned or decided to stay put. It's a real long-term pattern we're seeing.
And is there one place that stands out as the main destination?
Oh, absolutely. Australia. It's been the dominant choice, really.
Right, across the ditch.
Yeah. Accounting for over half, 56% or so of all Kiwi immigrants in recent years.
Wow.
And the numbers are huge. By 2024, we're looking at something like 670,000 New Zealanders who actually call Australia home now.
That's incredible. 670,000. It's almost like having another major New Zealand city just across the Tasman Sea.
It really is. It's a substantial community over there.
Yeah. But it's not just about Australia, is it? Are there other significant paths people are taking?
No, not solely Australia, though it is the biggest. The United Kingdom still holds that sort of historical significance.
Right, the traditional OE route, maybe?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
And we still see a flow of professionals heading there,
Right.
probably drawn by existing professional networks, cultural connections, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And interestingly, we're also seeing growing numbers moving towards places like China and India,
Oh, interesting. Why there?
often linked to, say, growing business opportunities or perhaps family ties. It's
Mhm.
diversifying a bit.
Yeah, okay. And looking at the Stats NZ data you mentioned, you can really see the numbers going up and down over the years, can't you?
You really can't. It shows the ebb and flow. Some years show more people arriving overall than leaving, definitely. But then other years have a clear tilt the other way towards more departures.
Were there any specific years that really stand out in that data?
Yeah, if you look at the annual migration overview table they provide, you'll notice a clear net loss of people back in 2010.
Okay.
And again, quite significantly more recently in 2021.
Right.
But then you contrast that with years like, say, 2015, which saw a pretty notable net gain of people.
So it does fluctuate.
It does.
Yeah.
But even in a year like 2023, where the overall net migration figure was positive because of non-citizen arrivals,
Uh-huh.
the sheer number of departures, over 110,000 individuals leaving, that really underscores this continuous movement of New Zealanders going overseas.
So it's not just about who's coming in, it's the significant ongoing outflow we need to look at too.
Exactly. That outflow is a key part of the story.
Okay, so we have a sense of the scale, the direction, Australia leading the way. Now let's get into the why. What are the primary drivers? What's making so many Kiwis decide to pack up and leave? It can't just be wanderlust, surely.
No, you're right. It's generally a mix of factors, a confluence, really.
Yeah.
And economic considerations are certainly very prominent.
Like cost of living, we hear about that constantly.
Yes, the increasing cost of living here in New Zealand, particularly when it comes to housing, that's a huge one, but also just everyday essentials. It creates significant financial pressure for a lot of individuals and families.
Yeah.
It can really reach a point where staying just feels like a constant struggle financially.
And linked to that, I guess, is the wage difference, particularly with Australia. Is that as big a factor as people say?
Look, it is a substantial draw. The data suggests that, on average, wages in Australia are around 26% higher than in New Zealand.
26%.
Yeah. That kind of difference, well, it can be a powerful motivator, can it? Especially for people looking to improve their financial well-being, maybe get ahead a bit, achieve a different standard of living.
Yeah, that's a tangible difference in your pocket every week or month.
Absolutely. For many, it really makes a difference to their day-to-day lives and future prospects.
Makes perfect sense. That promise of earning significantly more for, comparable work, it's pretty hard to ignore.
It is.
And it's not just about the higher pay itself, is it? Sometimes it's about just finding the right job in the first place.
Exactly right. Limited job prospects, particularly if you're in more specialized or niche fields, that's definitely a key push factor for professionals.
So you might have the skills, but just not the openings here.
Precisely. You might possess really valuable skills, good qualifications, but find there are just fewer opportunities for career advancement, or maybe even just finding suitable employment within New Zealand's, specific job market sectors.
So going abroad just opens up a much wider range of possibilities.
It really does. A bigger pond, essentially.
Okay. So beyond these economic forces, our sources also touched on how maybe government policies might be playing a role, perhaps indirectly, in this emigration trend. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, it's an interesting angle to consider. One thing mentioned is the impact of, say, recent public sector adjustments or cuts.
Right, the restructuring.
Exactly. The resulting uncertainty around job security, well, that may have prompted some individuals to start looking overseas for more stable employment opportunities.
Makes sense. Job security is a big motivator.
It is. And furthermore, there's this other side. While stricter visa regulations are sometimes implemented, to manage overall immigration levels.
Trying to control the inflow.
Yes. But there's a potential unintended consequence there. The outflow of New Zealand citizens might not be adequately compensated for by new arrivals who have the specific skills that are being lost.
Ah, okay. So you tighten the rules for people coming in, but you're still losing skilled people going out, creating a gap.
Potentially, yeah. It's a complex interplay, really, between managing who comes in and the impact that has on the skills balance,
Yeah.
given those who are leaving. It's a delicate balancing act.
And it sounds like it could have these, unforeseen outcomes. Okay, so it's not solely about economics and policy then, is it? There must be personal and societal factors pulling people away too.
Oh, absolutely. You can't discount those. The perception, whether accurate or not for everyone, but the perception of achieving a better work-life balance
Right.
and maybe having access to a broader range of services or amenities in other countries, that's a significant pull factor for many people.
So the idea that life might just be easier or offer more elsewhere.
Kind of, yeah.
Mhm.
People might feel that moving abroad offers an opportunity for a higher quality of life overall, whether that means more leisure time, maybe perceive better access to certain types of healthcare, or just different lifestyle options that appeal to them.
And I can imagine, too, that knowing there are already big communities of Kiwis in places like London or Sydney or Melbourne, that must make the idea of moving seem less daunting.
Oh, that's a critical point, definitely.
Mm.
Those established expatriate communities provide absolutely invaluable support networks for newcomers.
Like a ready-made landing pad.
Exactly. Knowing that you'll likely find familiar faces, people who understand your background, share that cultural shorthand, and can offer practical assistance, finding accommodation, navigating systems, that can significantly ease the transition. It makes the prospect of moving to a whole new country far less intimidating, for sure.
Okay. So we've explored the trends, who's leaving, where they're going. We've looked at the reasons, economic pulls, job prospects, policy factors, personal desires. Now, let's turn our attention to what all this means for New Zealand itself. What are the key impacts we're starting to see from this consistent outflow?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the consistent departure of a significant number of people, particularly, as we mentioned, those in their mid-career years.
Yeah, the experienced folks.
Right. People who often possess valuable skills and experience. This is leading to noticeable skill shortages in several crucial sectors back here.
Like what sort of sectors?
Well, you hear about it in healthcare, construction, IT, education, areas where that mid-level expertise is really essential for, training younger staff, for driving innovation, or just delivering the services effectively. Gaps are emerging.
And with a steady stream of younger people leaving too, that must also have a broader impact on the sort of age structure of the workforce overall.
It does, absolutely. That phenomenon of an aging workforce, it just becomes more pronounced when a significant number of younger individuals choose to emigrate and build their careers elsewhere.
And what does that mean practically?
Well, it can affect overall productivity levels, potentially, and maybe the pace of innovation across various industries could slow down as the pool of younger talent, often bringing fresh ideas and energy, shrinks relative to older workers.
And a shrinking or aging workforce that naturally has knock-on effects for the economy beyond just productivity levels, right? How does this immigration trend impact New Zealand's economic well-being more broadly?
Precisely. Reduced economic growth is certainly a potential consequence of a smaller or differently structured labor force.
Fewer people working, less output.
Generally, yeah. With fewer people employed or perhaps a less dynamic age structure, there can be a decrease in overall economic output and potentially a slower rate of innovation and new business development.
And taxes.
That's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
A smaller working population, or one with lower average earnings if higher earners leave, contributes less in taxes overall.
Right.
And that in turn can put pressure on the government's ability to fund essential public services, things we all rely on: healthcare, education, infrastructure investment. It can strain the budget.
Hmm. That paints a concerning picture, doesn't it? Fewer contributors potentially straining the very systems that support everyone. And the impacts aren't just economic, are they? There must be societal consequences, too, when you have this sustained outflow.
Yes, absolutely. This raises important questions about the kind of social fabric of communities, particularly perhaps more regional or rural areas.
How so?
Well, we're observing population decline in some parts of New Zealand, not everywhere, but in some regions.
Mm-hmm.
And that can lead to real challenges locally. Things like the closure of local schools because there aren't enough kids, maybe weakening of community organizations, sports clubs finding it hard to field teams, and just a general downturn in local economic activity as the number of residents and customers decreases. It can hollow things out a bit.
Yeah, you can see how that would ripple through a smaller town. And there's also a particularly sensitive aspect we should probably touch on regarding the emigration of Maori and maybe other indigenous populations. Are there unique impacts there that the sources mention?
Yes, that's an important consideration. The immigration of Maori citizens, for instance, it has implications for things like the transmission of culture, the everyday use and maintenance of Te Reo Maori language,
Right.
and just the overall strength and cohesion of Maori communities, both urban and Iwi-based. When people leave, especially younger generations, it can impact those connections and cultural continuity. It's a complex issue with potential long-term cultural and social consequences.
Okay. So if we take a step back and sort of summarize, this deep dive into the immigration of New Zealanders since 2000 really highlights a significant and quite ongoing trend. It's not just a blip.
No, definitely not.
It seems like a really complex picture driven by this interplay of economic pressures, cost of living, wages policy settings, both intended and maybe unintended consequences, and obviously individual choices and aspirations.
That sums it up well.
Yeah.
And all of that is creating these noticeable ripples across New Zealand's workforce, its economy, and even the social fabric of communities.
So thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah, what's truly thought-provoking here, I think, is to really consider the long-term implications. What does this sustained pattern of emigration, particularly of citizens, ultimately mean for New Zealand's national identity, for its social cohesion, its future prosperity, especially if this trend continues or even accelerates?
That's a big question.
It is, and maybe for you listening, it's a worthwhile question to sort of ponder yourself. What factors, if any, would ever make you seriously consider leaving your home country? Or if you perhaps have moved away from New Zealand, what might be the pull factors, the things that could one day bring you back?